Have you ever wondered why people treat you the way they do? Why they interrupt you in the middle of a sentence, as if your opinion doesn't matter? Why they ignore you in groups? Look at you as if you were invisible. Remember everyone, except you. Why they mock your sensitivity, your pain, your choices? Or worse, why they use you, drain everything you have to offer, and then disappear as if you were just a tool? Maybe you are that person who is always available, who says yes even when exhausted, who stays silent to avoid conflict, who forgives too quickly even when no one has apologized. And what do you get in return? Contempt, indifference, silence. And do you know what the hardest part of all this is? It's that deep down, you feel you are not being respected, but you don't know how to break this cycle, and you keep accepting. You keep trying to be understanding, polite, helpful, hoping that one day people will recognize your worth, but that day never comes. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And maybe that's why you haven't broken this pattern yet, because respecting yourself requires something frightening, looking inward and admitting that you have a responsibility in this, that as long as you continue to ignore yourself, others will continue to do the same. This video will not give you ready-made phrases or treat you as a victim. It will show you the root of the problem, and it's much closer than you think. If you are tired of being disrespected by friends, family, partners, co-workers, it's time to understand why this happens. It's time to take control of your emotional life. Here, we will dive into Jung's deep psychology to reveal why you tolerate the intolerable and how to change that once and for all. Because as long as you keep betraying yourself, no one will treat you with dignity. Are you ready to hear what you've never had the courage to say to yourself? The world around you is not as chaotic as it seems. It is, in fact, a brutal reflection of your psyche. And this is something that few have the courage to face. Do you think people disrespect you because they are bad, selfish, cold? Maybe. But what you don't want to admit is that they are just reacting to how you position yourself, or rather to how you do not position yourself. Because when you remain silent in the face of injustice, when you accept being treated as something lesser, you are communicating something. This is how I see myself. This is how I allow myself to be treated. Carl Jung believed that external reality is a mirror of the unconscious. Everything you attract, the abuses, the dismissals, the painful silences, are largely symbolic manifestations of how you relate to repressed parts of yourself. As long as you do not recognize your own worth, you project a distorted, fragile, insecure image onto the world, and it is this image that others see, and they treat it exactly as it presents itself. The issue here is not to blame you, it is to awaken, because the root of the disrespect you feel from others may lie in the silent pacts you have made with yourself throughout your life. Perhaps you learned as a child that being good meant staying silent, that being accepted required always yielding, that love was synonymous with submission. And now, as an adult, these scripts continue to run in the back of your mind, guiding every choice, every relationship, every swallowed word. You have internalized the idea that your worth depends on the validation of others. And this silent belief contaminates everything. You position yourself as someone inferior, not out of malice, but out of habit, an unconscious, deep-rooted habit. And as long as you do not bring this to the light of consciousness, the cycle will not stop. You can change cities, jobs, relationships, but the pattern will persist because it lives within you. Jung said that what is not brought to consciousness manifests as fate. So, until you face how you see yourself, you will continue to live experiences that reinforce your own invisibility. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you believe you deserve, even if that belief is hidden in the unconscious. but there is a way out. However, it starts at the most uncomfortable point. You will need to stop seeking respect outside and start building it within. And this leads us to a question that few ask themselves, but which defines the course of your entire emotional life. Why are you still trying to prove your worth to others? This is what we will talk about in the next part. You spent your life trying to prove that you are enough, trying to be the ideal child, the ideal partner, the friend who never fails, always bending, adjusting, molding yourself to fit others' expectations. And what did you get in return? Momentary approval, yes, but never genuine respect. Because those who live to please will inevitably be seen as someone who can be manipulated. This is the trap of external validation, one of the most cruel and invisible aspects of the human psyche. Carl Jung taught us that the persona, the social self, the mask we wear to be accepted, is necessary but dangerous. Because if you identify too much with it, you forget who you really are. And when that happens, you disconnect from your essence. You become a polite ghost, a presence that pleases everyone, but that no one truly respects. The desire to be accepted is legitimate. It is part of human nature. The problem arises when this desire becomes the compass of your identity. When you start measuring your worth by others' reactions. A compliment lifts you up, a criticism destroys you, and thus your self-esteem becomes hostage to the gaze of others. You strive to be useful, necessary, indispensable, because deep down, you believe you will only be respected if you are absolutely flawless. But the truth is brutal. The more you try to prove your worth, the more you confirm to the world that you don't believe in it. People who respect themselves do not beg for attention. They do not do favors expecting love in return. They know who they are, and that is enough. They do not need to sacrifice themselves to be seen, nor do they need to nullify themselves to be liked. They are not afraid of displeasing, because they understand that displeasing is sometimes the price of living with integrity. But to reach that point, it is necessary to break with a deeply rooted idea that you need to earn others' respect. You do not need to. What you need indeed is to rebuild the respect you lost for yourself, perhaps years ago, perhaps always. Only then does the gaze of others cease to be a threat and becomes just a reflection. But this requires a choice, and this choice almost always begins with an act that seems simple, but is frightening for those trapped in the cycle of approval: saying no. In the next part, we will talk about this decisive moment when you start to set boundaries and, for the first time, place yourself at the center of your own life. Because respect begins exactly there. When you learn that no can be the most powerful gesture of self-love. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. You have been conditioned to believe that being a good person means never contradicting anyone. That loving is sacrificing yourself. That those who set boundaries are selfish, cold, insensitive. And because of this, every time something bothers you, you swallow it. Every time someone crosses your boundaries, you stay silent. Every time you are hurt, you forgive even before the other person realizes the damage. You believe you are being mature, balanced, compassionate. But in reality, you are nullifying yourself. Little by little, day by day, you are disappearing from yourself. The problem is that the world does not respect those who do not respect themselves. And respect is not asked for, not begged for, not negotiated. Respect is imposed. And this imposition does not need to be violent, aggressive, or vengeful. It needs to be firm, clear, and non-negotiable. And this starts with a word you are probably afraid to use: no. Saying no is the first concrete act of self-respect. It is when you communicate to the world and to yourself that there are boundaries that will not be crossed, that your energy is not for sale, that your time is valuable, that your well-being matters. But to reach this point, you need to break free from guilt, because it will appear. Whenever you say no to someone who is used to exploiting you, guilt will eat away at you. It will make you doubt your decision. It will try to drag you back to the place where you always gave in. Carl Jung reminds us that the process of individuation, the path to becoming who you really are, requires confrontation. And one of the first confrontations is with that version of yourself that learned to survive by saying yes to everything. That version that believes pleasing others is the only way to be accepted. But this acceptance comes at a very high cost. Your personal value, your dignity, your identity. Do you want to be respected? Then start by saying no, where you used to say, sure. Start refusing tasks that suffocate you. Start distancing yourself from relationships that drain you. Start ignoring invitations you accept out of obligation. And notice, the first to be bothered will be those who exploited you the most, because your limit will expose their abuse, and that hurts, both them and you. But it is a necessary pain. You need to understand that every time you say no to the world, you are saying yes to yourself. And that yes is the beginning of something powerful, the rebirth of your own authority, the recovery of your voice, the start of a new way of existing, a way that no longer depends on the permission of others. But there is an even deeper reason that prevents you from setting boundaries, and it is hidden in the parts of your psyche that you refuse to look at. It is in your shadow, in the aspects you have repressed, denied, and tried to bury, but that continue to govern your life in silence. In the next part, we will dive deeper. We will talk about how your shadow feeds submission, and why, as long as you do not integrate what is hidden, you will continue to accept what is unacceptable. Why do you tolerate things that clearly hurt you? Why do you stay in friendships that diminish you, in relationships that drain you, in environments where you have to hide who you are to be accepted? Why do you allow yourself to be interrupted, ignored, overwhelmed, wronged, without reacting? The answer lies not only in your upbringing, traumas, or circumstances. The answer is in your shadow. Carl Jung defined the shadow as everything you have repressed within yourself, emotions, impulses, traits, desires, because you learned they were wrong, ugly, or unacceptable. The child who was reprimanded for saying no learned to be submissive. The one who was punished for expressing anger learned to smile while swallowing their tears. The one who was ignored when they needed attention learned to become invisible, so as not to disturb. And so you grew up, building a pleasant, polite, accommodating persona, while burying all your strength, your healthy aggression, your righteous indignation. But what is buried does not disappear. On the contrary, it gains strength in the underground of the soul. Your shadow, silent, remains alive, and it is the one who sabotages you when you need to assert yourself. It is the one who whispers, "Better not," every time you try to take a stand. It is the one who paralyzes you when you feel like saying, "Enough." Think about it. How many times did you want to speak but stayed silent? How many times did you swallow your pride to maintain a peace that was never yours? How many times did you let someone cross your boundaries and then felt used, dirty, small? You tolerate the intolerable because you are not aware of what you have lost within yourself, because you are afraid to access parts of yourself that you learned to hate, your firmness, your anger, your desire to protect yourself. You still believe that to be loved, you need to be passive, that to maintain relationships, you need to erase yourself. But that is a lie. It is just an old conditioning running like outdated software in the back of your mind. And as long as you do not face this, you will continue living the same story in different scenarios. New friends, same feeling of contempt. New job, same sensation of being exploited. New relationship, same wound of invisibility. Want a practical example? Think of that time you did a huge favor for someone, hoping, deep down, that it would generate recognition. But all you received was ingratitude or worse, demands. And you stayed silent, brooding inside, feeling used. Or that situation where someone disrespected you publicly, maybe a boss, a friend, a partner, and you swallowed hard, telling yourself it wasn't worth fighting. This kind of silence is not wisdom. It is submission disguised as maturity, and it comes straight from the shadow. Jung said that what you do not accept in yourself controls you. Your repressed anger turns into passivity. Your buried firmness turns into fear. Your ignored voice turns into anxiety. You become a prisoner of your own denial. And as long as you keep fleeing from these parts of yourself, you will live at the mercy of others, hoping that someone, someday, will treat you the way you do not allow yourself to be treated. But there is a way out, and it involves an act of courage, integrating the shadow, rescuing what you learned to repress, not to become someone cruel or indifferent, but to finally be whole. And that is exactly what we will talk about in the next part. Because before demanding respect, you will need to reclaim something much more important, your inner power. And it is where you least like to look. If you feel that this video is touching on truths you have avoided for a long time, it is because it is time to take the next step. Respect is not something you demand from others. It is something you build internally, day by day, with concrete actions. If you want to stop being treated as disposable, you need to start acting like someone who has value. And this doesn't happen by magic. It happens with practice, constant, conscious, and intentional. Here are 5 practical tools you can start applying today to regain the respect you lost, for yourself and for others. 1. Use discomfort as a compass. Every time something bothers you, stop. Don't rationalize. Don't make excuses for the other person's behavior. Ask yourself, if I deeply respected myself, what would I do now? Perhaps the answer is to leave the conversation, set a boundary, not respond to a message, or decline an invitation. Follow that answer. Discomfort is your body trying to alert you that you are betraying yourself again. 2. Stop justifying everything. You don't need to give 3 paragraphs of explanation for every no you say. When you justify yourself too much, you communicate that you feel guilty, that you are insecure about your decision. Respect starts with firmness. Learn to say, I can't. It won't work today. I don't feel comfortable with that. And that's final. Those who demand that you explain yourself too much are already used to crossing your boundaries. 3. Start prioritizing yourself in your schedule. Look at your week. Where have you placed yourself? How many hours do you dedicate to yourself? If the answer is none, that is a clear sign of internal disrespect. Block time in your schedule for things that nourish your mind, body, and spirit, not as a luxury, but as an obligation. Make yourself a priority, even if it's just for 1 hour a day. This changes everything. 4. Replace reactivity with pause. When someone disrespects you, your tendency may be to explode or to stay silent. Neither path is healthy. What works is to pause, breathe, and then position yourself clearly. Say, I do not accept this kind of talk. This is not okay for me. Don't apologize for being bothered. Just communicate. Those who assert themselves with respect teach others to do the same. 5. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. Observe your environment. Does it value you or consume you? Are you surrounded by people who recognize who you are, or who only seek you out when they need something? The respect you want also starts with where you place yourself. Learn to distance yourself quietly. Those who want you close will notice. Those who don't notice have never truly seen you. These practices are not difficult. What makes them difficult is the emotional pattern you have created over the years. Pleasing to be accepted, yielding to be loved, staying silent to keep the peace. Breaking this requires repetition, firmness, and patience. But the more you respect yourself in small things, the more it becomes impossible to be disrespected in big things. And there is one essential point we need to face. Even when you start to respect yourself, there is something that can pull you back to old patterns. The fear of being alone. Emotional dependency is the last shackle that prevents you from living authentically. In the next part, we will talk about this. Because only those who learn not to depend on anyone's gaze to know their own worth are truly respected. There comes a time when you need to stop blaming others. Stop waiting for people to change, to recognize you, to treat you with the respect you never gave yourself. The world is not blind. It is just observing how you position yourself. And then it simply reacts. You want to be heard, but you keep silencing yourself. You want to be valued, but you accept any crumbs. You want to be prioritized, but you continue to put yourself last. And then you wonder why no one sees you. The answer is harsh, but it needs to be said. Because you hide. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The disrespect you receive, the relationships that hurt you, the cycles that repeat, all of this is not bad luck. It is the reflection of your relationship with yourself. The external only changes when the internal reorganizes. You don't need to become someone impenetrable, cold, or indifferent to be respected. What you need is to stop begging for love in the form of obedience. You need to stop adapting to environments that suffocate your authenticity. Above all, you need to make peace with the idea of being alone. Because only those who are whole can bear their own company. And only those who can bear their own company can truly choose who they want to be with. Everything else is dependence disguised as affection. From now on, every time someone crosses a boundary of yours, you have two options. Either you stay silent and reinforce the pattern, or you take a stand and rewrite your story. And you don't need to be aggressive to do this. You just need to be true to yourself. Because when you respect yourself, your energy changes, your posture changes, your gaze changes, and the world notices. Respect starts from within. And when that happens, you no longer need to ask. It becomes inevitable. If this video confronted you, made you think, touched a part of you that you usually avoid, then comment here, "I choose to respect myself." This can be your first public gesture of commitment to yourself. And if you want to continue on this path of transformation, watch the next video. It is just as important as this one. Go deep. You deserve to reconnect with yourself.